All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets here for this Sunday night showdown between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's go ahead and jump into it. And so I have the cheat sheet pulled up right now, and I think this is actually a pretty good starting point here. We got Rachaad White, and we're going to see that the best bet on the board is him to get under 10 rush attempts. This one has a 53.7% likelihood to hit. So an interesting bet there. We'll touch on that in just a second. Just want to call it the game lines here as well. So it is a pretty high scoring game. 47.5 is going to be the game total. Point spread, 3.5 point favorites are the Bucs, which is kind of interesting there. Dallas playing all right. Tampa Bay also playing pretty darn good there as well. But let's talk about Rachaad White. And the way we can talk about Rachaad White is actually talking about Bucky Irving. So Bucky Irving had himself another good game last week. He actually only ended up playing 43% of the snaps last week. I contributed a decent amount of that to that game last week, just being a blowout in favor of the Bucs winning. But I do think we could end up seeing a little bit more of a 50-50 split here. If we look at Rachaad White, he has been consistently getting 10 carries in a game. And let's just put it this way. If they are playing with the lead, maybe this game does end up being another blowout for the Bucs. Then Rachaad White getting over his rush attempts would be something I could see happening. Now, the data is telling us to bet the under, so it's mostly going to be a bet that we should probably just be staying away from. But I did want to touch on that since it was popping up as one of the better bets. Now, another bet and another player that I want to draw your attention to is going to be Jalen McMillan here. So Jalen McMillan is someone that I think is going to have a good game. First and foremost, he has a good matchup here going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the worst pass defenses in the league. And if you look at Jalen McMillan, he has had an 85% snap share since week 12, and he has looked good doing it as well. He has been and will be in this game for sure with Cade Otton out. I shouldn't say for sure, but I think he'll be the number 2 pass weapon in this offense tonight. And so actually one of my favorite bets would be for him to get over 3.5 receptions, which he did against the Chargers, which he did against Las Vegas. Then we see against Carolina, only 2 receptions in that game, but we see 3 out of the past 5 games, he's been able to get the over. And if you look at the targets, guys, 6 targets, 7 targets, 3, 2, 7. I do expect those targets to be a little bit higher. Again, this is projected to be a close game. This is projected to be a high-scoring game. If both of those are true, if Vegas ends up being correct about that, I see this as a good edge for us, especially, again, given the fact that Cade Otton is out. And so because of that, I just expect more targets to go his way. Now, sure, we could see the running backs. We could see White or Bucky Irving get a lot of work in the passing game instead. And I do think that'll probably happen there as well. I couldn't find an edge there for Bucky or White. I didn't really like any of those lines. The one line that I did like, especially the fact that we're getting it as a demon, was McMillan to get over his receptions. Now, another line that I don't mind is looking at Mike Evans to get over 5.5 receptions. On PrizePicks, they currently have it set at 6. On Underdog, they have it as a reduced payout at 5.5 receptions. I do think there's a good chance that, one, he does get to 6 receptions, but also I think there's a good chance that he's able to get to 7 receptions in this game. And for most of this is just me, again, betting on that game being high scoring, betting on it being a close game to the point where it is going to promote that pass heavy script, at least enough so for the Bucs. Now, Dallas is a little bit poor stopping the run, so we could see White and Bucky Irving as well. But I think the targets will be there for Mike Evans. And I do think he's going to have a good game in this one here as well. Probably want to pick or choose one or the other, whether that be McMillan or Mike Evans. I think we have to choose one of those. I know there's the narrative around Mike Evans trying to get to 1,000 receiving yards. Obviously needs to have a good game here to be able to do that. And then one other thing here that I want to talk about as well is that obviously, yes, Cade Otton is going to be out in this game. And so to me, I do think it's going to be Durham that is going to be the player that's going to get the most snaps in replace of him. But that's mostly in rushing situations. I actually wouldn't be surprised to see just a lot of 4 receiver sets. Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, Jalen McMillan, and Mike Evans. I actually do think Sterling Shepard could end up having a decent game in this game and end up getting like 2.5, maybe 3.5 receptions. Like if we were getting that line, I wouldn't be opposed to like betting on one of those two. Obviously, we're not getting that just yet, so I can't recommend that. But you know, that could be a decent edge for us because, again, I just kind of see that happening for them. And now, guys, let's go ahead and jump on into the Cowboys. One of my favorite players to bet on in this game is going to be looking at Rico Dowdle. I think he has a good chance to still get over his rush attempts. This is a bet that I've recommended the last 2 weeks, and he's come through for us. I've been on him a decent amount recently as well, and I just feel like this is the correct spot. Now, I do want to call something out here as well while we're here. Look at his fantasy score on Underdog. To me, that's a good middling opportunity. So, a reminder to anyone that doesn't know, Underdog does half-point PPR. PrizePicks does full-point PPR. And so just pulling up his line as it sits right now on Underdog, guys, it is at 14.25. Again, we have to do the calculation adjustment for Underdog and PrizePicks, but to me, guys, they are clearly a little bit too high. Underdog is on Rico Dowdle Now, I do see a situation where kind of both end up being true, where he is able to get his over rush attempts here of 16.5, but also I see a situation where maybe the fantasy score still hits. Now, this reception line is definitely interesting here as well. If they are playing from behind in this game, I do think that Rico is going to be someone that could end up getting his over receptions here. He has a 70% route share. Last week, he did not get a reception, but again, didn't really need to. He was rushing the football extremely well. And so I'm kind of okay with that, but I think I want to stick with the rush attempts. And so Tampa Bay has been a pretty good defense against the run, although not as much in the second half of the season. And then you pair that up with Rico getting a bunch of work, getting about 70% of the snaps. I think we can lock that in here at this point. Continues to look good. And so I expect him to get a healthy workload in this game still. And because of that, I'm happy to bet on his over. Mike McCarthy has at least been telling us the truth here with Rico lately, and he has looked good doing it. I mentioned this every game over the past, I think, month now here with Dallas. He really reminds me of Chuba Hubbard last year, where start of the season kind of did just look like another guy, but each and every game looked a little bit better here and there, to the point where now with Rico, I'm like, all right, he kind of like Chuba at the end of the year last year. All right, he's more than just another guy, more than just an average running back. I expect him to continue to look pretty good. He still has that burst as well, like a running back that clearly hasn't gotten that much work thus far this season. You can see that burst is still there for him. So yeah, I still think he's going to be a good option for us tonight. And then let's jump into Cooper Rush. Again, I hate to kind of keep saying it, but this is projected to be a high-scoring game, 47 points. Decently high there for Dallas, okay? And so if that does end up happening, I actually like the over here for Cooper Rush for over 14.5 for his fantasy score. And part of that is because I'm going to be doing a lot of reception over bets on Underdog. If we were to potentially want to bet on some overs for Cooper Rush on Underdog or PrizePicks, to that matter, and we paired it with the receptions, that would decrease the payouts that we're going to be on, because stacks that correlate get drastically reduced. So we don't exactly want to do that. So I'm happy to bet on Cooper Rush for over 14.5 fantasy points here on PrizePicks. And if you guys have been watching Cooper Rush thus far, like, he hasn't looked bad. Like, he's been solid. He's been a good enough backup where in certain spots he's been able to produce. And again, this is a pretty good matchup. And I expect him to be able to throw for a touchdown at least, which is obviously a goblin bet here. You look at the passing yards, 235.5. To me, you give him that. Maybe you give him a little bit of rush. Probably not. He's probably going to get, yeah, you see the rush difference here. But just in these lines that we're getting, he's basically there. If you tack on 2 touchdowns or maybe extra throwing yards, he should be able to get the over. At that point, though, we could just end up doing his passing yards, which is a little bit too low, or just betting on him to have 2 passing touchdowns, where you could just end up doing that. Like, they both correlate. At that point, we could just end up doing a demon bet here for Cooper Rush instead. So that's going to be up to you guys. There is a slight prop line difference between PrizePicks and Underdog with the fantasy score. 0.5, not that much of a difference, but it is big enough to create a slight edge. And so, guys, real quickly, let's just go ahead and get into the bet of the day here for PrizePicks. Going to be looking at Cooper Rush over 1.5 passing touchdowns. If you want to do the fantasy score instead, you can do that. Then you're going to be doing Jalen McMillan over 3.5 receptions there. And then, guys, I do want to show to you guys as well that the CeeDee Lamb fantasy score line, that's also kind of happening, kind of like it was with Rico Dowdle as well. I don't really see a big difference either way. Just want to call out, if you do think he's going to have a massive game and you want to bet on that, bet on the correct site there. Just make sure you're maximizing the likelihood of that bet hitting. But I want to talk about his receptions line. So it's at 7 on PrizePicks. On Underdog, I'm okay getting to him at over 6.5 receptions in this game. Again, if I think that Cooper Rush is going to have a good game, then also that's going to mean that CeeDee Lamb is going to have a good game as well. We see the targets 13, 7, 6, 12, 12. Again, given the high-scoring nature of this game that's projected to be, I think it would be a pass-heavy script. Thus, I do like CeeDee Lamb to get his over receptions. And to me, that would correlate decently with Rico Dowdle getting his under there. And then, guys, another bet that I kind of like with a reduced payout would be Jake Ferguson to get over 3.5 receptions. It's kind of the issue with how PrizePicks and Underdog has it set up. It's annoying, okay? That's either drastically reduced or increased payout. Just give us some standard lines here, guys. Anyways, I don't mind this here for him. He did play 60% of the snaps last week, which was a decent amount. We could see that line go up to about 70% in this game. It is worth calling out. Luke Schoonmaker has been someone that has been impressive, but it is clear that Jake Ferguson is the top tight end. And if he does end up getting a little bit more snaps in this game, then I do like him to get over 3.5 receptions. In that game where he ended up playing 60% of the snaps, 4 targets, only 2 receptions, and 29 yards. But like the fact that those targets were there for him. Now, I do think we have to choose between Jake Ferguson or Brendan Cooks here for receptions. And I actually don't mind his over receptions there as well. Brandon Cooks over 2.5 receptions. He played a sneaky amount of snaps last week where he ended up playing 63% of the snaps, and he ended up being having the second most targets, which wasn't much, but he still had the second most targets there, gaining 5 targets. And so again, we probably have to choose between which of these Dallas Cowboys receivers we want to be on or pass catchers. I'm going to go with Cooks over Ferguson. If you guys see it a little bit differently, that's fine. All right, guys, so going to be getting into the underdog bet of the day here. Do want to remind you guys of the promo code that's going on the website up until the new year. Use the promo code KEEPCASH and you get 20% off your first 9 to 5 month membership. Take advantage of that, guys. Turn your $10 membership into $8 for the first month. And so, yes, kind of just showing you guys my favorite bets for this game. Again, more for traditional sportsbook bets is kind of what I'm doing here with Underdog, because we're not getting any of those like plus expected value bets. If we were getting some tackles and assist prop bets, I'd love to hammer those. We're not, which is kind of crazy as well. Again, I do think Rico's going to be able to get his over 16.5 rush attempts. I actually don't mind the idea of betting on Rachaad White for his over rush attempts on Underdog, where we're going to get a little bit more of a payout for that. A little bit of a game stack here, kind of betting on this game being indeed higher scoring here. And so it's fine. It correlates well with the game total. That's going to be all, guys. Thanks for watching. Good luck with all your bets on this game. And as always, let's keep cashing.